Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for another Peak Performance brought to you by Pinnacle Appliance Support. Today we're going to be talking about Induction, Fulgor Milano Induction products. They go from 30-inch to 48-inch, 48-inch with a griddle, and there's actually a 60-inch coming out soon too. So we want to kind of familiarize ourselves a little bit more with Induction, its capabilities, how it works, and some of the nuances that we get to deal with as technicians in the field, some of the error codes, and how to correct and diagnose some of these things. So first and foremost, I kind of want to talk about pots and pans and the cookware that we are using, customers are using. Not all pots and pans are created equal when it comes down to that. A ferrous material must be included in that pot and pan. A cast iron is going to be the best. It's going to have the most inductive qualities. You're going to hear a nice deep hum on the induction module when it's working. Some other different pots and pans have added ferrous materials to them to where they will work, but it may only boil in the shape of a circle inside of the pan because that's the added layer that has some magnetic properties. So depending on the cookware, you may hear different noises. Cast iron is going to be a nice deep hum. Like something different pot that has a added property may have a ringing, tinging noise. So I have some water in some pots and pans here. We have two different quality ones. I'm going to turn this one on first. You may not be able to hear it, but you can actually hear a nice little buzz to it. It's not a deep hum like it would be if it was cast iron, but let's see if I can lean and get you on there. All right, cool. So you can hear a nice little buzz on that one. And this water does heat up very, very quickly. So we're literally almost boiling at this point. I'm going to go ahead and shut this one off. I'm going to turn on this larger one. You can kind of hear a difference in the noise in this one. You hear the more ringing, tinging noise because it's a different material. It still will work. It still will be efficient enough and cook as normal, but it's going to have a different noise. And this is where we can get into that conversation with customers. Why does this pot or pan make different noise than this one? Why does this one seem like it cooks a little faster or boils water a little bit faster? And obviously it has to do with volume inside of the pots and pans as well. The more volume, the longer it's going to take, obviously. So that's also a conversation to have sometimes because I think, although we put 4 cups of water in there, it should boil in 30 seconds, and that's just physically impossible. If you put a, small amount of water in there, you can boil fairly quickly. You can kind of see steam coming off of you already. And you can kind of see, if you looked inside of here, you will see the circular shape of the added ferrous materials inside this pot and pan. So this is our 30-inch model. It has 4 burners, and each one of these burners has a booster and a fast boil. So you can actually turn it to the P function, and it'll be a power booster. Shiloh, correct me on this one. I can't remember exactly how long that power booster lasts.
So that power boost will last 10 minutes and then it will downgrade back to 9.
Okay, and they have power management systems to where if you are using all of the burners, and on a 48-inch cooktop, which we have over here and I'll talk about in a second, it has power management boards to where if you do see numbers changing on the electronics on their own, that is not an issue. It is the machine just trying to rob Peter and pay Paul, for lack of better words, to where it's going to take power from one burner and give it to another burner to make sure everything is cooking adequately, and it's never going to trip your 50-amp breaker. So that's one of the big ones that we see. Some of the error codes that we see, other than pots, pans, unusual cookware that does not work with induction, will have a specific error code. There'll be a symbol on the display. Some overheating may be possible at some times if they're doing a lot of cooking on the cooktop, and the cooktop glass does get warm. It may have an error for an overheating necessity or a necessity. Shiloh, what are some of the common errors you guys see in service there?
So some of the most common errors that we see with the induction top is, one is a knob error. This is you've held it into a position for too long. This can be using your power or your auto function.
Amazing.
We also have your E2. This is the excess temperature that you mentioned. Just let the system cool down. If you're a technician, you may need to replace the hob itself as the sensor is built in. And we also have an E6. This is an error on the power board of the supply element. You're going to first want to check all of the wiring. Check all of the wiring and the filter board, and then lastly you can replace the power board if that doesn't get it taken care of. Last error is our biggest error here is our error 47. This is the line communication error, and Mike will take it a little bit more in depth.
So while I'm talking, if you could do me a favor and pull up that PDF that we have there, it's a checklist basically on how to assist you diagnose a ER47 error code. So basically, we want to get inside the module and we want to check for voltage to the modules. We want to make sure we have 208 or 240, depending on what's supplied to the machine. If we can confirm we have voltage, there's a few other steps they want you to take and confirm the bus connections between the modules, make sure they can communicate, and the bus connections going to your actual physical power management board in the front there that has your display. So if you guys have that up on the screen, you can kind of scroll through, go through that checklist, and this is going to help you substantially whenever you see an ER47. Document this along the way. Take photos of your meter measurements. So if you have 240, document it with a picture. If you don't have 240, document it with a photo, send it to service so that way we can best assist. If we find out that you have a loose connection, plug it in, let us know, take a picture of the loose connection so that way we can share that with the factory if necessary. This is just one of the more common things we've been seeing in the field, and we're trying to combat that. And one of the things that we've got from the factory is this checklist. So if we can confirm voltage and we can confirm that our wires are plugged in correctly, our bus connectors, and that they actually have continuity. If they are plugged in, you can always take it a step further, pull your multimeter out and check from end to end and make sure they are reading signal. It's a rarity, but it does happen in the field sometimes. So at this point, I'm gonna kind of take that up off the screen, and I'm gonna have Shiloh grab the GoPro, and we're gonna kind of get in a little bit closer on this 48-inch induction module here. All right, so we took the liberty of taking this one apart a little bit for you guys already. So we flipped over the induction top. The induction is completely separate from the range. They're two different machines. They're only married together at the terminal block by the voltage. So if you're ever ordering a main control board for your induction, please understand that has nothing to do with induction. They're two separate entities. So here's the cooktop, the glass cooktop underside of the induction. Then we went ahead and took the induction top, took this induction top, flipped it over inside the glass so you guys can see the burners. So as part of that checklist goes, we want to check voltages. We want to make sure that we've got proper 240. You've got voltage over here because this is two modules. Pretend this is a 36-inch machine right here. So we've got 4 small burners, 1 large burner in the center. This is going to have 2 induction modules underneath it, one here and one here. And they have to communicate. So as long as you've got voltage, great sign. You can actually peel up these burners. They're actually held in by some Velcro, and you can see your little connections here. We want to make sure that all of these connections are plugged in nice and seated in correctly, and make sure that none of these wires are pulled out of that connection. Sometimes from the factory, you'll see a wire that's not pushed in correctly, and that would maybe where we're having an issue and getting a communication issue like that ER47. So you can always follow these back to the induction module. You can take this a step further, flip this back over, take the modules off and see the actual modules on the top side. But like I said, you can move some of these burners out of the way, gain yourself some access. Just make sure you put the burners back in the correct spot. So that way, when you do put everything back together, the burners are going to be underneath the circular portions of the cooktop itself. So this is the inside of one of these modules. If we get down to the point, voltage checks, all of our connections check, we can't find anything wrong as far as miscommunication error or no continuity between the wiring, we're going to send you a complete induction assembly. And that's going to consist of the induction modules and this entire induction assembly with the burners. When it comes down to it, you're going to make sure that everything is plugged into your power management board and then your encoder hub. So when you have your switches on the front there, if they're not plugged into the encoder hub, power management board, and everything isn't able to communicate, you're going to turn it on and you're going to get the ER47. So just make sure as you disassemble these machines, you take photos of where your plugs are, because you can only take things apart so far before you may have to unplug them. Take photos along the way so that way if you get stuck putting it back together, you have a photo to double check of where that wire went. So that way if we ever get down to it and something's not working and the machine's fully back together, we can share some photos back and forth with each other and kind of determine the cause of failure there. Anything on the induction modules you think I missed, Shiloh? The modules themselves are actually fairly to replace too. You can actually see some screws that actually hold the modules on the underside of here. When you do replace this whole entire induction cooktop assembly, it will not come with your power management board and your display board. These will need to be swapped over from the original to the new one. That's the only thing that will need to be swapped. One other little tip and trick, like I said, these are Velcroed on there. So when you go to flip these back over and put this back on the underside to where it's going to be touching the glass, these will have this tendency to kind of manipulate and fall and slip around. So just make sure you kind of slip your fingers in there and hold them in place. So that way, when you do put them in back together, you're not going to have a burner out of place underneath the cooktop. So why don't you come back over here with that, and I want to kind of show them more on this induction. So we'll turn this burner back on. We're going to turn it all the way up to level 9. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to get in there so you can kind of hear that little buzz. And you can see some of the bubbles starting to form at the bottom there. Another thing that the customer may complain about, let's say we're using this size pan, but put it on this burner. There'll be a difference because you will only boil water in this burner shape right here. Although this is a larger pot, we will only boil underneath this burner. So you will only be conductive underneath this. If you use a super large pot, it's only going to boil right in the center there. All right, so now we got this one boiling. You can see how efficient and quickly this boils water. Obviously, it wasn't a lot of volume, but this is cast iron. This is going to actually be one of the best conductors. I put a little bit of water in this, and I'm going to put it over a smaller burner so you guys can see that if you turn on that burner, oops, it will only boil underneath where that burner actual coil is, the magnet coil underneath the cooktop. It's actually a coiled up magnet. When a power is supplied to it, it becomes an electromagnet. When you put a ferrous material on top of it, it completes the circuit, and that ferrous material becomes very hot very quickly. And you can see it's already starting to kind of move the water around. I'll get in deep. You may be able to hear a nice, good, solid hum on that. But you can see we're not bubbling anywhere around here yet. It's only isolated to the center spot where that burner was. So this is another question that you may get from the customer. They may be using too large of a pot or a pan, and they're expecting the full bottom of the pan to become hot when it will not, because that's not part of the burner, not sitting over top of the conductive burner or inductive burner. So before this gets too hot, I'm going to turn it off. But I also want to show you guys the P heat real quick. So you turn it to P. You got your P function there. And this is going to be a power boost. It's going to boil really, really quickly. We already had that water kind of hot inside of there, so this will only last for, what do you say, 10 minutes before it pops back down to a level 8 or a level 9. But since we don't have a lot of water in there, I'm going to go ahead and turn that down and off. Induction is great material. It's becoming more and more popular these days as gas is becoming less and less popular, especially in high rises and different communities like that. But us understanding how induction works, being able to explain it clearly to a customer is going to only help us in the field. I hope that you guys understood this checklist and understand induction a little bit better now. While we still have some time, is there any messages or questions in the chat from anyone? No? Perfect. Well, all of our service manuals are available online. You can actually go to Fulgor Milano's reserve site, or you can go to pinnacleapplianceparts.com. We host the literature there as well. You can find the service manuals if you guys have questions about induction. It's all listed inside the service manual, and always contact us for tech support while you guys are on site. If you guys have questions, try to call us while you're there. Don't leave property and then call us 24 hours later. We can make some magic happen while you're there. So please contact us, 877-844 477-4832. My apologies.
And one thing that we want to go over really quick, Mike, is just the undetected pan or the incorrect pan, just so that we can make sure that a homeowner is aware that if they see that underline U, that it's just that their pan is not compatible with the induction range.
Should we have a pot that may not work for me?
Is that wok? No, I hear it. Just testing a couple of different pans to see if we can showcase that underline U for you guys.
Yeah, but actually it will be a U with a line underneath it. If the customer sees that symbol, you can automatically assume that pot will not work with induction. It is not induction rated. Cast iron is going to be the best, but sometimes customers have cladware that they've had for many, many years and they don't want to switch it up. There are some different things that they can do. There's adapter plates that can be purchased, but the adapter plates then become hot, and you do lose a little bit of efficiency there. So there are some workarounds, but using a ferrous material pot pan is going to be the best bet, and you're going to get the best results with your induction cooking. All right, I think I actually have a pan that may not work with induction. No, I think we're good. If you want to switch cameras, you can come over here and see the unit not detect the pot here. All right, so we got it on this front left burner. I'm going to turn it on. It's turning on like it's going to turn on, but it's not detecting the pot. You will see a U with a line underneath it. That means that incorrect pot will not work on this machine. It's a great one. That was a great visual. I'm glad we did that one, because that's another call that we receive often. My customers see symbols on the display and they think it's automatically an error code, when it may just be, the cookware that they're using is incompatible with the product that they purchased. So on the 48-inch ranges, they do have bridge burners to where you can turn two burners on at the same time. On this 48, this would actually be your bridge burner. So what you would do is you can turn two knobs at the same time and turn it into a bridge to where you can use a griddle over top of that bridge burner. You can kind of see the outline of the bridge burner on the cooktop glass itself, so you can understand that you can use it as a bridge or two individual burners themselves. And then on some of the other 48s, they have a griddle, and underneath the griddle is two more induction burners, so that way you don't lose any more burners if you need to, and you're not using a griddle. All right, well, I think that's everything I wanted to get into about induction. Thank you guys for joining us today for Peak Performance, everything all about induction, and I'll see you guys